with, oh, and then the green juice, by the way. Did you guys like the green juice? That's also in my book, the recipe for that. And so if you like that, there's the recipe as well. So I'm going to just start you guys out with this video. Are you recording, George?
Oh.
Okay, you can start now.
Alright, what do we got?
Just came in. Heart attack. 5'9", 300 pounds, 32 years old.
How the hell was that? Can I get a, could be developing diabetes. Yes, exchange. Oh, yeah.
You're graduating. Watch TV. You want to know.
You can't do this.
Yes, kid.
No,
You have to make a change. Good job, Jim. You're an A+. And your size, sweetie. I still can't believe you get this child from us. No, it's the only thing that'll make you stop.
All right, so hopefully that made some kind of introduction of what we're going to talk about and why I get very passionate about what we do. So give me a bit here. I, like I said, did this recipe book as a tribute to my sister, and hopefully I don't cry, who passed away about 5 years ago. And she had type 1 diabetes. My dad, who let me just see it. I just kind of will do this. It's not green anymore.
Okay.
There we go. I know why. The little thing. So I'm just going to give God a glory right now, because today has been one of these days. And he provided, because we couldn't get the PowerPoint to work. And I prayed while I was back there serving you the juice. And he provided. I'm like, well, I'm going to run out of juice. And did everybody get juice?
Yeah.
Okay, he provided again. And this will work. And this is my dad. And he is still alive and kicking. But he had a stroke. It was actually a blood clot he did have a stroke, and he had 5 heart attacks, and he's still here. And then about now going on 5 years or so, he also had a deep vein issue that had a surgery, and then unfortunately didn't follow doctor's orders to stay in bed, so he hobbled to the bathroom and hobbled back, and by the time you know it, my brother-in-law comes, and he was sitting there with his eyes open, not responding, so he apparently had a stroke and left him paralyzed. But again, we give God just the glory for keeping him alive, and we still have him. He goes back and forth with me and my sister. Right now he's with my sister, but this is him. But this is apparently also an issue with what we're going to talk about today, which is inflammation. So I know all of you probably raise your hand if you know somebody that has had heart disease? Raise your hand. Keep it up. Raise your hand if somebody in your family has had cancer. Chronic arthritis or issues with diabetes. I mean, if you look around the room, everybody has their hand up, or they already got tired and and they brought it down. So apparently we have an inflammation issue, because what I'm going to talk about today is not just inflammation. When you get a cut or you have pain in your back or whatever, small issue, well, I call it a small, we have the top leading causes of death caused by chronic inflammation. So we're going to talk a lot about chronic inflammation, but some of these issues, this is my dad's study, one of the many arteries that in his heart, he had, I think, 95% occlusion of all his arteries. He had that much plaque, and I mean, I'm surprised he's still alive and kicking. He says he has 9 lives, and I believe it. he hasn't died yet. And you know, the beautiful thing about it is that this last time he committed his life to Christ, and I think that God's way was waiting on him. And amen. You know, whatever it takes to do that. So, but this is what happens with most people. And so, what happens with our thoughts on inflammation has to change, because we continue to think that inflammation is a bad thing. And the way the medical model treats inflammation is what? Like, what do you typically do when you have some kind of inflammatory issue? You take a pill. And that's the issue, that nowadays it's treated every time. And so we want to make sure you understand by the time we finish tonight is that every symptom is the body doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason. I'm going to repeat that again. You got to honor your symptoms, because every symptom is the way the body treats it is for a reason. So I'm even going to go to the sake of, to the extent of cancer. So is cancer good or bad? We would say it's a bad thing, but is the process of cancer a good thing? And so that's how we see it. But what we have to understand by the time we leave tonight is that every symptom, even the symptoms of getting cancer, is your body buying you time. And I'm going to explain that by the time you leave tonight, you'll get the fact that when you get cancer, it's probably because you had no idea until you find it. So I'm going to just talk about a continuum that I talk to my chiropractic patients. And if you haven't been to my 5 Essentials basic class, you probably haven't heard this, but this is the continuum. So we're born and then we die. Okay, so I'm not saying this side of the room is death, but when we are born, unfortunately, most people are going this way too fast. Okay, because we're in a world that is so toxic and so inundated with just lots of junk nowadays, whether it be the minute we're born. You know, God somehow for 9 months has made us, but somehow as soon as we're born, man thinks that we're unequipped. So automatically what happens to our kids? So medications, let's put some vitamin K, let's, you know, some vaccines, then baby gets sick, go to the doctor and gets antibiotics, and you watch the video, then it's Similac, and then, well, let's just start them on McDonald's because that's what everybody does. You guys see that? And they go to school, more vaccines, 89 rounds by the time they get to, you know, elementary school. And then, you know, so we're going, I'm not even like past elementary yet, you know what I mean? But we're going this way so fast. And then they get sick, and every time they get sick, it's more antibiotics, more stuff, a Tylenol for everything, instead of trusting that that fever is the body doing what? The right thing at the right time for the right reason, because once the temperature goes up to 104, the body shoots out interferon, which then starts the inflammatory issue, causes your body's immune system to then put out B cells, which are memory cells. So when you get to that temperature, body does what it needs to do to then shoot out memory cells, which are soldiers. So when you get sick again with a virus, you get exposed to it, your body says, I know that one, and then shoots out your secondary, soldiers. Does that make sense? But if you don't let it do that temperature, but we fear because, my baby's going to get a what? A fever. And so, but typically if you honor the symptoms, every time they get a fever, you hydrate, don't give them sugar, actually let them fast. When a dog gets sick, do they eat?
No.
Even dogs know not to eat. Does that make sense? So the baby does maybe chicken broth or some kind of mineral drink, to put the electrolytes in, because typically they get dehydrated, right? And that's when they get the seizure, because they're dehydrated and they don't have enough what? Minerals. You guys get this? But then I'm going to keep going forward. And then teenagers, and then now they need ADD medication, depression medication, whatever. Okay, so now you're in your 20s and you're addicted to all these drugs and you didn't even know it. But all this time, have you really had a lot of symptoms? Not like chronically, right? But then finally you get it to like 60%. And so you have this bucket that's been filling up. Your body can deal with some of these toxins, but after a while, then your body fills up, your liver can't catch up to get rid of all these toxins, and then finally you're at 60%. And then what? Then you start expressing more symptoms. I don't know why I'm so chronically fatigued, or I have eczema, or I have, depression, whatever. And you finally get all these symptoms, cancer, and you get it diagnosed whenever it's already like about 60%. And then finally you get diagnosed with something, and then what? You run this way or this way. Typically we're like running this way, you know what I mean? Because then we get more drugs or more organs ripped out of us, or, whatever, radiation. And there's a time and place for everything, guys. But my point tonight is what can we do to just finally get to the point to wake up early enough to start doing things different, so we're not running that way any longer than we have to. And so this is where we got to make sure we understand that NSAIDs, whenever we get inflamed, like I'm just going to talk about an injury, like you have a fracture. Do you need the medical model? Probably to go what? Maybe set the bone or put a cast on it to make sure it, like it's in the right place, all right? But what does the healing? The body, that power that God put in the body heals the body, all right? So who heals you to begin with? God. We've been taught even like just for simple athletic kind of injuries. When an athlete comes to me and says, should I put ice or heat? I'm like, what do you think? Because we've been told what? This rice thing, rest, ice, compress, and elevate. That's what rice means, okay? So the fact is that inflammation is the body actually doing what God designed it to do, to then do what? Bring the blood to that area, to bring all the nutrients to that area. So when you ice something, sometimes it's actually not the best solution. Sometimes it's nice to just leave it alone, maybe rest, okay? And, sometimes there's compression. Sometimes it even has to do with the joint itself, or like if there's more muscle, then maybe you can do a little bit more more heat. So there's times and places, but you really have to be realizing what Jesus do, the reality, what would the body do? And so we got to act appropriately. So what actually is inflammation. And so we want to understand that what inflammation is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. The body is doing the right thing. But whenever your body is like, even like with the COVID thing, what happened with the virus? Everybody got what? COVID brain. You guys know what COVID brain is? Like foggy brain, because the body was so inflamed, it created what we call the cytokine storm, when all this inflammation just overreacted, and before you know it, you can't smell, you can't hear, you can't, tinnitus, you're wondering why you can't remember things. And even now, people are still suffering from the side effects from COVID brain that we call, because of the fact that that inflammation is still in you. So chronic inflammation is what we're going to be talking about right now. And so kind of told you, whenever you sprain an ankle, again, just let it be, compress it maybe, but let the inflammation do its thing. And so you don't have to always just ice it. There's a lot of nutrients we're going to talk about, or what you can do. But my main thing here tonight is that the fact is that when chronic inflammation occurs, and this is what's happening with some of these diseases, that's what we need to remember. That is a body overreacting, kind of like the COVID brain stuff, like the heart disease stuff, cancer, autoimmune issues, is a overactive stimulus that the body creates. So the way I explain this is like, have you guys ever gotten a callus? Okay. So what happens when you go maybe do pull-ups, or you're not used to using a shovel to plow your snow, or whatever the case, or a shovel to dig a hole. So after a while you get a blister, right? So the body detects that there's an issue, and what does it lay down? A piece of more skin, right? And then you go do it again, and then it lays down what? Another layer. And then finally you don't get blisters anymore. It starts to form a callus, and I get them from lifting or doing pull-ups. But those are the calluses that you earned. But over time, if that callus continues and continues, so this is a lining of a intestine, or what we call a polyp. So every organ, you call it something. So if it's in the intestine, you form this little polyp, and which is just a little callus where in the gut mucosa. And then before you know it, you still continue to eat the bad foods that cause inflammation, and you start to get what? Kind of like that 60%, it starts going to 50%. You don't have many symptoms, but then you're wondering, maybe why do I have issues swallowing, or if it's in your colon, I have an obstruction. And finally you get a bigger a polyp that starts forming cancer within it. Okay, so I'm going to explain a cell and what happens whenever you have a really bad cell and why you start getting cancer. So, but the body's buying you time. It's putting what around that? More fibrotic tissue, so it keeps growing it and tries to hide it by more what?
More tissue.
Tissue. And so, that becomes a kind of bigger tumor. And then finally, within the cell, like we're going to talk about, intracellular congestion causes intracellular toxicity. And so that big old white stuff, that's basically now the cell just starts to expand, and that becomes what? Cancer. You guys get this? But when did you start getting this? When you get the symptom of what you can get the diagnosis of cancer, or when? You started forming this years ago. So you've been sick for years. When I do my cancer talk in October, it's just on cancer. I'm going to tell you how this happens, because people get diagnosed and they're like, I have it, now I have to go do something about it. No, we all have cancer in here, but we have no idea because we have no what? Symptoms. See, that's the issue. We wait till there's a symptom to do something about our health instead of doing what? Start acting on it like years ago. Start changing how your kids live. Start doing something about it. And so this is the problem. So we're going to talk about how it affects everything. I can't talk of every organ, but this attributes to everything. So just look at your teeth. If you have inflammation in your gums, what does your body place down?
More tissue.
Calcium, which is typically calcium, more tissue. And then it what? It creates that more tissue over time creates a what? A cavity, and then you have a dental issue. And everybody's like make sure that their teeth are clean, right? And so then if you have inflammation in your gallbladder, what does it start to produce? Again, calcium. And anytime there's inflammation, your body puts down calcium. And so then more calcium and more calcium because you're not changing the actual root cause, the inflammation, and then you get a what? A gall stone. And if it's in the kidneys, same thing. So what's the true cause of all these diseases? In the joint, what happens? Typically, you start overusing it, or you have so much inflammation from your diet, or autoimmune issues. So when you get autoimmune, if you guys don't understand autoimmune, we just did that class who came to the last class? It was all about gut issues. So when you have a gut lining like the one we just saw, it inflames, and then the pores open, and then you get leaky gut, and now this undigested food goes into your bloodstream because you have leaky gut, and then that undigested food is detected by the brain, and it says, what is that stuff? Protein doesn't belong in here yet, or, and so then the brain detects this as a bad guy, and it goes and produces antibodies, and so then you get an autoimmune response to your own body. And for some people, like my son, it was type 1 diabetes. Another one is like a thyroid issues are most of the time autoimmune diseases. JRA, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, or arthritis itself, you know what I mean? Rheumatoid arthritis. I mean, I can go on and on. There's so many diseases that are just from autoimmune issues. But what was the cause? What causes a lot of this stuff? What's the theme of this talk? Yeah, that's what I want to hear. Inflammation. Do I ask questions all the time? So just bear with me. And by the way, we give prices for people who volunteer. So, all right. So just to let you know, like for example, this is just an artery. What's the true cause of high blood pressure? What do you think? Inflammation. So all this is showing you, so on the very top, there's a vessel with a lumen, a canal, where blood flows through. But if you have a lot of sugar, bad fat, toxins, that starts to create a lot of inflamed cells, then that lumen starts to get smaller because of the inflammation. So now what has to push harder to send the blood through? The heart. So now you have a lot of pressure in the heart to push this like syrup because of all the sugar in your blood. You guys, after Thanksgiving, do you guys feel like everything's swollen? You know what I mean? So you have this now heart that's having to push harder. So now let's say you go to the doctor. Typically after Thanksgiving, you have more people with high blood pressure issues. But then also, let's say you've been building some scab. You probably can't see it from out there, but that C has some like yellow on it. What's a scab called in an artery? We call it the same way as teeth. Plaque. Yeah, which is calcium or cholesterol stuck on the sides. And we're going to talk about cholesterol is not the issue, but it's the oxidation. But we'll talk about this. But now you have this like a scab on your arteries, and then you got blood pressure really like flowing through there, so it sloughs off a little piece of it, and now you have a little piece of this little thrombosis, we call it, that goes between your vessels. That was my dad. And then what happened? It went to a little vessel, and then it burst because it couldn't pass through. That makes sense? So then what's the number one thing that we find after Thanksgiving dinner in the hospital? it's the highest day for heart attacks most of the time. And so this is where, but what caused this initially? I'm going to talk about 3 things tonight, and I'm going to repeat it again and again. I mentioned one thing, sugar. I'm going to talk about bad fats. I'm going to talk about toxicity. And fourth, that's not it's just stress, and we all have it, but it's not a food. So the other thing is that the last one is aneurysms, and that's more because the back of it starts to swell. The back where it's pushing too much, it starts to swell. So then you get a ballooning, and then it pops. You guys understand that, right? So that's 1 million stents per year right now. Who knows somebody that has a stent? Thank God. I don't like them, but my dad was kept alive by one. And so, by actually 5 of them. And so this is where, I don't know, they're keeping him alive, but is he wanting to be alive? He wants to be home. But now we've kept him alive so long that finally he said, I want DNR. Like, don't keep me alive anymore. But now he's not dying. I love him to death, but God still wants him here. So 500,000 bypass surgeries per year. I mean, this is America. And so what they think causes heart disease, typically we get told that it's either bad luck, cholesterol, drug deficiency, like we need the drugs, the statin drugs, aspirin, deficiency, blood pressure drug deficiency, or it's in your genes. You're just going to die from that. And is that a stinking lie or what? You know what I mean? So genetics are a tendency, but they're not a life sentence. I mean, we have so many people that have changed that everybody in their family died of something, but they're still kicking and thriving because they changed the way they live. So do not fear cholesterol. And I'm going to just talk about this a little. I mean, Time Magazine even said, it's not the bad news. It's basically the truth is it's the oxidation. And what does that mean? Did you guys have the green juice? Did you guys see it a little brown? No? It was already oxidizing. That's how fast. That's why when you buy green juice in a little bottle, you think, oh, I'm being healthy because, you know what I mean? Is it at least maybe something in there? But the more alive it is, the better. So when you juice, like fresh, did you guys taste the live enzymes in there? Like a zest? How many of you did not like it? The green juice. Most of you liked it. Sometimes people are so acidic that they don't like that taste because it's too alkaline that you kind of, your body's not used to it. So the truth, more people die of heart attacks with normal cholesterol than elevated. So that's what's happening now, that many people are taking statin drugs that's lowering it, but we're dying more of heart disease issues than ever because most people get a what? A statin drug. And this is not a heart talk, but I am giving you some you go think about it or ask me questions, because everybody thinks that this is a life-saving drug, and it's the number one, other than depression drug, the number one drug that is sold out there. And so this is where we need to start thinking about this. It causes liver damage. Most people who are on statin drugs have issues with muscle wasting, atrophy, depression issues. So it stops CoQ10, which we're going to talk about the importance of CoQ10, but it's a nutrient, it's an enzyme that helps your body and your inflammation, but it stops that. So it limits protection from cholesterol against cancer. So you need cholesterol, and so cholesterol is not a bad thing. And so this is basically right here, some research. CoQ10 is an antioxidant needed to transfer energy from food to our cells, and it inhibits when you're taking statin drugs. So should I lower my cholesterol? Again, what did I say? Every symptom is what? The body doing the right thing at the right time. When there's inflammation, your body actually makes more cholesterol. What makes your cholesterol? What part of your body? Your liver. Your liver is always looking at symptoms. But whenever there's so much inflammation, your body's trying to help you. And this is where you got to understand this. So every symptom is the body doing the right thing at the right time. While many cardiologists insist that lowering cholesterol is correlated with a reduction in the risk of heart attacks, few can say that there is a reduction in the risk of mortality. And this is an MD saying this right, this quote right here. In other words, it has never been conclusively shown that lowering cholesterol saves lives. In fact, several large studies have shown that lowering cholesterol into the range currently we recommend is correlated with increased risk of death, especially of cancer. So this cholesterol is the body doing the right thing. So what is it? So I'm not going to too much about on this, but I just want you to know this because it's been an epidemic in my family, and I am sure in your family. But when you go to the doctor and you go get your blood work, typically they'll check for what? You guys know what HDL and LDL are, okay? So the good ones are the green ones, which are the HDL, and the bad ones supposedly are the LDL, okay? So that's the cholesterol in the bloodstream, all right? So the problem is that, yes, LDL is bad, but what they're not looking at in the lab work that's done in the medical model is what's called the particle size, or the vehicle where this cholesterol transports in. So if you attribute it to a road, if you have a lot of little cars, does it congest the highway? Versus, you know, the HOV lane, they tell you put more people in the vehicle. So the smaller the LDL, the more ability that it gets to be oxidized because of the surface area. That makes sense? So when there's inflammation, that's when it's going to be the issue. The larger the LDL, that's what you want. You want large LDL because you need it, because it helps carry things out, but you want the larger ones. So what's the importance of HDL first? You know, we need cholesterol, so you need HDL, you need cholesterol. It's in your membrane, like in this cell membrane. This is a double lipid layer. That's what that's demonstrating, a piece of it. But all the little yellow dots, it creates what's called cellular fluidity. So this membrane in a cell is fluid. Why? Because in a cell membrane, you want it to be fluid, so what can come in? What do you need in a cell? Nutrients, right? You need lots of nutrients, vitamins, whatever. So things need to pass through the cell membrane, right? And what needs to come out of that membrane? All the what? The waste, right? Am I losing you guys? Okay. So all the toxins, right? So what happens is when we have lots of the bad kind of fat and not the good kind of fat, this wall of fat, which is good, we need fat, becomes really rigid. You know, like hydrogenated trans fats, all those kind of oils. So this wall, after eating all that bad fat, like I'm going to give you an example. I always do this in my nutrition class. So you take a McDonald's burger I bought 2017, and this French fry still looks crispy and ready to eat. You know, because they use what kind of fats in here? Hydrogen and trans fats. So it preserves it. So now the cell, and by the way, the burger and the fat and everything. Chris and Ann, are you here? They didn't come, right? Chris and Ann Benight? No? Okay. So, but we eat all this bad sticky fat. So now how can nutrients come in? Not too good. And how can toxins go out? Not too good. And then I'm going to talk about sugar in a little bit. But sugar, again, there's good and bad, but most of the time we're eating all the bad. And what does it do? Sugar swells, right? Inflames your cells. So now you have this swollen cell that's sticky. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about toxins. Toxins are things that God did not create. And so they basically bind to what in your body? Because your liver can't get rid of them. And so then they go back and bind to what?
Your healthy cells?
The most important thing in a healthy cell is what? I say the layer, right, is made up of what? Fat. So toxins, and then your receptors of your cell is also made of fat. Your brain, like we have these receptors that are listening to hormones. But toxins go in there and they embed in these and take over these receptor sites. So like I'm going to give you an example, or they'll embed in the fatty membrane. And so let's say this receptor was for insulin. So now sugar wants to come in to be utilized for energy. So insulin comes and typically attaches to those receptor sites to open the gate to allow sugar to come in. But if you're toxic, these receptor sites starts to die off, so you become insulin what? Resistant. That makes sense? So now you have this cellular congestion, it's called. This cell wall that's just so sticky, swollen, things can't come in, things can't go out. So what's happening inside the cell? It's becoming really what? Toxic. The mitochondria that make energy, they're weak. So you wonder why you have mitochondrial dysfunction. Most people don't have so much energy. They have chronic fatigue. And so we need to fix their cell healing. It's called cellular healing. But what happens is then the body, then the DNA makes another bad cell and another bad cell, right? And what did I say? A lot of bad cells, kind of like a callus. What happens? It becomes fibrotic. You get more tissue, and that's called the what? Typically a tumor. You guys get this? And a tumor for a long time is cancer. So who created the cancer? So you did. I hate to say you. We all have cancer cancer cells from our genetics or our family, but who's feeding it? So if somebody tells me I have cancer, doc. Oh, well, you did that. Would that be a good thing? You know what I mean? But nobody wants to point here, right? I'm not going to tell somebody that. But I'll tell you this. Who has the power to fix it? So what do we need to do to get rid of this inflammation? I got to go and start walking this way and get rid of what caused it in the first place, which is what? What are the first three things? Bad sugar, bad fat, and toxins. And one that's hard to get rid of, stress you'll never get rid of. But you got to know how to first have this alignment here and remove the sinking thinking and maybe change your time management and start to work on that. So that's what we call Max Mind in our office. Is we have a class we do in the beginning of the year just on helping you with things to start fixing that. But there's a journey with this, okay? So cholesterol is needed for it's in your bile and your gallbladder, your intestines. I mean, I can go on for sex hormones. There's some animals having fun. So it's needed. You know, we need cholesterol. So I'm not going to, but I want to use this example of the heart, but this attributes to everything, okay? And so I'm not going to go on more of the heart issues, but you guys get it. So it's a silent killer. Hopefully by now you understand, you know, I'm not going to talk about all these heart things, but if you have lab work and you want to find out the real way to test for stuff, this is what functional medicine doctors do, and that's what I am too. I'm a functional medicine doctor, so I'm not going to check for insulin, for sugar. I'm checking insulin. Or, you guys see that? I'm checking like the preventative stuff first to see what's your inflammation markers. You know, what's your CRP? Those are the lab works that I request. But I request them after I know that you've been doing the advanced plan, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, for at least 3 months. Because if I check you guys right now and you haven't done anything for your health, what's going to be the likelihood I'm going to have bad numbers? So why waste my time? You know what I mean? Go fix stuff. And then after 3 months, because it takes 3 months to what? Replace. Who can change this? Romans 12, you can renew your mind. Guess what? You can renew your body. If you starve this cell, what's the only thing that this tumor wants for energy now? It doesn't need fat, it doesn't need anything. It starts to build these receptors for only sugar. So then what we do is every time we give sugar, we're feeding this stuff. So what's the best way? My cancer talk, I tell her to get rid of the cancer.
Get rid of sugar.
You get rid of sugar, which is the advanced plan we're going to talk about, but also fasting. Because if you're feeding the body all the time, your body can't go and kill this, which is called autophagy, where your body recycles these bad cells and it uses them to replace new cells. And every 3 months, your body's creating a new cell. So if you get rid of all the bad stuff and you give it time to heal, then what's going to happen to your body? It's going to start utilizing the old stuff and renewing. So your body can renew. And that's what this is cellular healing. And this is where, we have programs here where George is going to talk about it, but we walk you through at least 3 months of this stuff. Well, he walks you through it, and you have a coach that does it, but this is what this is all about. And we if we're going to send you for lab work, we send for the right stuff. So anyways, going back to what, and now you kind of know the why. Now, how do I do the how? How do I do this? And it's, guys, how many of you have been patient with me for years? How many of you have heard this for years? And why have you not done it? And I'm just so glad you're still here. The people who raise their hand, why do they keep showing up?
Keep trying.
Because they're still on the journey, right? Or sometimes there's seasons. Sometimes there's seasons where, you know what? Life hit. And that's fine. And you just continue to show up. And who's the most successful is the people who show up. 99% of success is just showing up. So I am so thankful you're here, but just keep doing it. Just keep going. Just keep swimming, just like Tori said. You just keep doing it. So I'm not going to talk about a lot of mindset, but that's my the class in January. But for sure, if you're not taking time to just sleep and rest, and one of the biggest nutrients that has helped me a lot with my anxiety issues is magnesium. I have, believe me, a lot of stress in my life, just like you guys, maybe different stressors. But, I had a bout of just anxiety, and just where I started taking some magnesium, some good supplements, but magnesium glycinate, but sleep, relax. Another thing that we do is we basically, of course, never leave out prayer and scripture. We're just really diving into the Word. I'm sure most of you know that, so I'm not going to talk about that. But for sure, overeating creates stress on your body. So that's what we're going to talk about, fasting and how you do this to actually get rid of inflammation. Somebody who doesn't know what fasting is? So y'all know what fasting is. So I'm not telling you to go and not eat for a week. I'm just telling you to implement just simple fasting. If you don't know what simple fasting is, it's just stop eating breakfast, eat at lunch, go all the way to dinner, and then fast for about 16 hours. That's simple. I mean, if there is extended fasting that I've done, like the beginning of the year, I do that after the holidays. I'll do a 3-day fast or, something like that. But why would you even want to do that if you haven't even done intermittent fasting? You know what I mean? Like baby steps. Don't go and try this marathon when you haven't even walked a mile. So you do one thing at a time. But health equals function. We already talked about that. So it's how you function. It's not just how you feel. And most of the time, people don't realize that core chiropractic is needed, because most people go to a chiropractor for what? For pain. Raise your hand if you're a patient here that came in here because you were in pain. Almost everybody. Everybody in my patients. I mean, very rarely I say, I'm here to show up to have a wellness chiropractic adjustment. I'm like, wow, who are you? Because that's not what I get. I eventually get those patients that become wellness chiropractic patients. How many of you are still here over 10 years? I know there's a couple of you. You've been here she's been coming to my talks forever. But she gets it that she comes here to maximize her health. And how old are you, may I ask?
65.
And look at her, she's beautiful. But the biggest thing, your nervous system is what controls everything. If I were to, I didn't give you guys rubber bands, but sometimes I'll give you a rubber band and tie your finger with a rubber band. If I have a rubber band tied up for a whole time, I have them like wear it the whole class, what happens to that finger?
It turns red.
And then it turns blue, and then it's like throbbing. So when a nerve is getting compressed, it starts to inflame. That makes sense? So when you have subluxation in your spine because of misalignment, that's what we call subluxation. And simply put, subluxation is a bone out of alignment, putting pressure on the nerve. What does that nerve carry?
Signals.
Yeah, of what? Of your brain to your body, right? So we call it power. That power, kind of like electricity, that power that God put in the body, the power that made the body heals the body. So that power gets shut off. And so sub just to let you know, the root is like less than, and lux means loose. Loose means light. And so it's a Latin derivative. So less light. So when you're subluxated, you have less light of that God's power. So your body's dull. And we adjust you and we go from here to here. You know what I mean? And I can breathe. You get adjusted like, wow, I feel good. I can move. But we just turn the power on. Sometimes I'll even adjust you and say power's on. And people look at me like I'm a weirdo. And I'm like, well, they'll get it later. Power on. And I adjust and power on, And so you may not hear it, but I say it to you and then finally you get it. Okay, so does that make sense? Okay, so just know subluxation is interference with the nervous system. I'm going to go fast through this, but your spine should have curves from the front. It should be straight, but you should be like this. So what happens is nowadays everybody's what?
Slouching.
We call it a head forward posture, also called text neck. So what most people do nowadays is we're in this position all day long. And so that's putting lots of stress on those joints. And just like any stressor, it causes what? Inflammation. And inflammation over time. You take this joint that is like this thick in a disc. And then before you know it, it starts to wither because it's not getting motion. It dries out. So then it starts to get bone on bone. And over time, then you get now a joint that bone on bone creates more what? Calcium, which we call it a calcific spur, arthritis. Anything with itis is inflammation. And then finally, you see that nerve here that had a hole where it would be able to communicate. That hole starts to reduce and it starts to pinch the nerve. Now you're wondering why your arm's falling asleep. But hey, what? The nerves go to your heart, go to your thyroid. So how's that working? Then you go to the doctor, and now you have heart disease. You guys see this? But what started it is that power talking to those organs at 100%. That makes sense? Okay? So if you haven't if you haven't gotten your nervous system checked, get it checked, guys. I'm not going to go over this. But this study here, chiropractic care lowers blood pressure. How do you think that happens? This is a study by not chiropractors, by medical doctors. They wanted to actually, nullify chiropractic. And so the first nerve that exits is called the vagal nerve. The vagal nerve is what controls your autonomic system, which, how you have parasympathetic slows you down and sympathetic gets you away from the bear. So that vagal nerve actually gets turned on when it's functioning. And so you're able to sleep, you're able to digest, pee, poop. But when you're always on, you're wondering why all these kids are so hyper is because they're subluxated. So you're wondering why we adjust babies when they have colic and then we turn the power on and then they're like, my kid pooped and went and slept all night. Well, of course, we turn the power on and now their nervous system's functioning the way it should. But who healed the baby? God, that power within you. That makes sense? I just removed the interference. So we move the bone, God does the healing, and that's what it's all about. Okay, and so this kind of shows you every area has an innervation to an area, and this goes so slow, but it talks about like C1, C2, your sinuses, your thyroid, and your neck, and then it goes to your heart, then it goes down to, your asthma, if you have issues in your thoracic spine, because those go to your lungs, and then down to your digestive. You're wondering why your stomach acid is low. Well, how's T5? Because that's the nerve that goes to your stomach, then your liver, your gallbladder. It goes to every area, sciatic pain, but guess what? That goes to your lower colon. You're wondering why you're constipated or have sex issues. So that's where it's that simple, guys, okay? I'm going to fast forward through this, but this is like that degeneration we talked about. So if you have these signs, get your spine checked and avoid inflammation. This is a patient from before and after getting that curve back in there. And she came in for arm numbness, but now she doesn't have thyroid medication. And that's the thing, guys. It's about fixing that spine. So we talk about stress, chiropractic, also in our office, just to let you know, if you're not doing your home exercises, if you're a patient here, do you expect to see change on your spine? No. So we get these curves only if you're doing your part too. So we always tell you, hey, have you gotten your home equipment? So when you walk in our office, if you're a new patient, you'll see people doing these weird exercises, but it's all to get the changes. Kind of like you brush your teeth, you have to be also in control to take care of your spine. So going back to the nutrition part, so what do? I think the number one thing that's going to summarize everything I talk about tonight is Align Your Health book. The Align Your Health book has just every detail of what nutrition to take, but I'm going to summarize it for you, but I would recommend it if you want recipes and all that. But this is that unhealthy cell we talked about. See how it starts to get like congested and bad from all the toxins. So that's just another diagram that we have. But what were the three things that cause this bad stuff? Sugar, bad fat. There you go. So now you can. So what do we need to do to fix it? Is reduce the sugar, get rid of the bad fat, put the bad fat, and change the meat that you eat. So today we're going to have a couple from Emmett that we use their beef. But if I were to say one thing is start changing the fat. Myths I have to break down. Counting calories. We never count calories in our program here. It's just about good nutrients and stop counting calories. I don't care how many calories you go in as long as they're good. So you have 22 almonds and one Twinkie. Same calories, but what do you get out of a Twinkie? Like it's dead food. We have lateral shifts that we always put up here every month. We change it. This is the back to school little like lunch pail. So most kids go back with their, Fruit Loops and their Lunchables and their, I don't know, whatever this thing is. Yeah. And so this stuff is all going bad, and I just put it out like, 2 or 3 weeks ago? Well, 2 weeks ago, but this is like the healthy version of a Lunchable. The oranges are all dehydrated. But why does it go bad? Because it's real. If it doesn't go bad after 5-6 years, 2017, whatever that is, you know what I mean? That's probably not good for you. You guys see this? It's that simple, but just start laterally shifting. I'm not saying this is 100% good. I don't feed my kids this. But even plastic water bottles, I don't use that. You know what I mean? Just it has phthalates and all that. But it's a lateral shift, and you have to baby step people. It's just, I'm not going to tell you what I feed my kids because you won't go there. I mean, he's type 1 diabetic for almost 2 years, haven't had to use insulin. You guys see this? But we've done extreme changes. But I don't know why God called us to do this. Maybe to write a book and teach people how to do it. I don't know.
What do you feed them?
So they're basically plant-based, just fruits and vegetables and some good quality fat. And that's all they've had. And this is teenagers, guys, 15-year-old boys. And why do they do?
Used to, if they're not eating junk food, then they get
What's that?
addicted to the taste of junk food. I've seen.
They've never had it. They've never been to McDonald's. And that's what's so weird. And then he gets type 1 diabetes. Yeah, and you wonder why twin 1 got it and why twin 2 didn't get it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm just saying that God promised victory, and that's all. He said, your son's going to have a trial. The patient gave me a letter 2 weeks before he got diagnosed. Your son's going to have a trial, one of your sons. But don't worry, I got him. Just trust me. And she gives this to me. And I'm like, trying to throw it. I don't want to see it. Like, get away from me, Satan. You know what I mean? And then 2 weeks later, he gets it, and I go look for that letter. And I'm like, well, and I stick it up. And that's all we looked at. I don't know. Show me, God. What do I do? And he said, Daniel's diet. All right, well, what's Daniel's diet? I go read it. It's plant, he told Daniel to do what for 10 days. So I did that, and it's like, well, okay. And he got better. His sugar dipped down, actually too much, because he was getting some insulin from the hospital when he first got diagnosed. And then basically I said, let's just stop, because he's going down. I'd rather him have high than low. Then you guys asked, I'm telling the story because you asked, but so, and then in last, or whatever, when it was, we started to add a little bit more meat, just because, okay, they're gymnasts, like, and then it kind of went higher again, so we're like, okay, let's take it off. And so now they've been, and I say they because they both do it. His brother said, I'm going to do it with you, dude. He's like, you don't have to. I'm your brother. What am I else going to do? You know what I mean? That's how tight they are as twins. And so when I say they both are 100%. I'm not. I mean, I don't eat junk, but I like meat. And so I am actually not as strong. And so, but I have more of a healthy, good grass-fed, the whole healthier lifestyle. But I mean, this is where it's possible, guys. It's possible. And it's one of those things that I feel that they were chosen to be examples for maybe somebody else. I don't know. And I trust in that, and they choose to. I don't tell them. They choose to. They want to. He's the one that said, I want to go back all in. When we were eating the meat, he's like, no, I want to go back all in because it was doing good for me. So they do it. I don't know. People say, you must be a mean mom. It's like, no, they do this. They do this. So anyways, I'm not going to talk a lot about this stuff. You guys know sugar is in what? In everything, and it is a bad thing. So we have two plans here called the core plan and an advanced plan. And a core plan is just go back. If you have never done any changes in sugar, just go back to real God sugar. So what's real God sugar? Fruit, cane sugar, molasses, or maple syrup, right? But some of you have been on core plan way too long, and you cleaned it up, but it's time to draw the line and said, from right now, August to October, because I know November and December, I'll go back to core plan, but I have to have 3 months to heal my body. So this is a perfect time to do this. August to like October, August, September, October. Yeah, 3 months, you know what I mean? I'm going to do advanced plan, the healing plan, and then maybe Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'll go back to core plan. Core plan is God food versus man food. I'm not going to do the whole nutrition stuff here, but just go back and get rid of all the junk stuff and just go back to just real food, like even if it's fruit. The advanced plan is going to be a step up where you get rid of everything, even if it's God sugar, you get rid of it. For how long?
3 months.
So you would do it, January, February, March again. And you guys see that? There's seasons. And then, you go and have a summer, off, and then you clean it up again. So there's a seasonal thing. And you have deep detoxes, kind of like what George is going to talk about, where you clean the liver out and you clean the colon and you kind of clean it out. And then you go fast and you feast, and you fast and you feast. That makes sense? Yep. All right. So what do I mean about the advanced plan? So sugar and everything that turns to sugar. So what would turn to sugar? That's not a fruit. Carbohydrates from what? Like bread, pasta, rice, oatmeal.
Anything with a barcode.
What's that?
Anything with a barcode on it.
Everything with a barcode on it. I like that. Yeah. And so, hi, I didn't even notice you were here. And so, all this is in the book, guys, but I want you to make sure that if you have questions, speak up. If you have like a doubt, speak up, because every question is somebody else is thinking it. Protein is good, but it even turns to sugar. So if you have too much, your body says, well, I don't need that much. So it stores it where? In your liver as storage for later, glycogen. And so if you don't work out and you don't exercise, that's what we're going to talk about, exercising, it goes where after a while? It turns into fat in your liver. You get fatty liver disease. You know, everybody been diagnosed with fatty liver and they're not drinkers because your liver is so clogged up. That's why you start building like a lot of issues with liver disease. But then it also goes into your gut. And so that's where with fasting, you start to utilize all the, you get on the advanced plan, you go do fasting too. Now you're not having sugar from outside in, but then you're fasting and you're utilizing your own sugars in your liver and your gut, and then your body starts to lose the weight. Does that make sense? Yeah. George, if you need to add anything to this, please come. Yeah, because he's going to be your coach if you do this stuff, okay? And then the last one is fats. Turn it into bad fat and good fat. So what are bad fats? Just if it says hydrogenated or even partially hydrogenated, don't use seed oils, rancid oils. Seed oils are so bad. Just go back to real food. And even, guys, I'm going to tell you this, even coconut oil, did God make coconut oil? I tell you to cook with a coconut oil, but if you're using it all the time, just be sparing about this, okay? Because you do need, I'd rather you have the actual coconut and eat it, or the actual avocado and put it in your salad. Does that make sense? Like, just that healing oil, the healing oil dressing, you know, it's very little oil, lots of apple cider vinegar that you had. Apple cider vinegar, did you guys taste that? Balsamic vinegar that's very, it's organic and doesn't have any sugar in it. And then it has turmeric and ginger and garlic and stevia. Was it good? It was pretty good. So cholesterol causes heart disease is a myth. Again, we already went through this. So notice, you want the yolk and you want a cast iron with a little bit coated with what? When you make your seasoned cast iron, what do you put on it? Olive oil, or maybe a little bit of, I would rather use coconut oil, but very just like take it, a napkin and then that's all you need. Just, I'd rather use tallow or bacon fat or like meat fat to cook your eggs, because that oil is like, they're saying that plant sterols are also becoming an issue. Okay, so just go to meat. We're designed to eat the meat fat. So you guys know what beef tallow is? You know, that stuff that has so much nutrients inside the bone marrow. Yeah, so eat your grass-fed meat. It has to be grass-fed bones. So ask George where to get that. Fat and meats causes heart disease, cancer, osteoporosis, and kidney disease. Again, that's a myth. It's not the meat that's bad, it's what the meat eats. So it should be grass-fed. Invest in a good cow and have a freezer and, you know, do it that way, okay? So conventional meat, get rid of it. You know, free-range chickens, wild fish, natural sources of dairy. Dairy is just a whole talk in itself, so I'm not going to go there. But if I were to choose dairy, I would choose raw from a grass-fed cow. And some of these people in Emmett have that available. Myth, you need 5 to 8 servings of grains every day. Again, that's the SAD diet, Standard American Diet. What does it have in the bottom? All bread, right? Pasta, rice. So you have to flip it over. So eat good quality fat and good quality protein and lots of what? Vegetables. So give me an example of a good breakfast.
Bacon and eggs.
Good source of bacon, but like not like the whole package of bacon. Like maybe one strip or two. Which is so hard because people think, oh, it's a keto diet. I could eat this much bacon. So when you're going to have quantities of protein, you want, like, if you're going to have bacon, you want your size of your palm per meal. So if you're going to fast breakfast, I still have breakfast with eggs or an omelet, but I eat it like later, and then, on a weekend or whatever, during the work hours, I don't bake that stuff, but then you eat lots of meals within 12 to 8. So it doesn't matter how much you eat within that time frame. You can eat 5 meals if you want to, but just don't eat thereafter. That makes sense? Okay? But you're going to have the advanced plan. All right? So 16 to 8 methods of intermittent fasting. All right? So this is another thing you can do is have a smoothie. This is what I have a lot of because that's my quick go meal. So you just put a good grass-fed. We have the grass-fed protein or bone broth protein. Pick your protein, but a good quality source. And then we put coconut milk, organic, berries, frozen, and then voila, you take your smoothie with you. Okay, so just pick what you're going to do. This is the benefits of green juice. Why I think if you're going to do a 3-day fast, I would say you can do a green juice fast because you're still getting the nutrients and the glutathione to allow your body to produce more. And I'm not going to talk about too much about glutathione. It's what your liver does to detox. But there's so many health benefits of just juicing when you're fasting. Okay, so you do an extended fast. But just to implement more vegetables. What herbs do I suggest? I think for inflammation is going to be the number one. It's going to be turmeric. This is, if you guys don't know what curcumin is, this root here. You get turmeric from this root. Ginger is another anti-inflammatory. So we have capsules that we recommend in our office that have the things that allow you to absorb it, like heparin. This has boswellia, which is an anti-inflammatory, which is another of those herbs that's here, and rosemary. So make sure you're on curcumin. You should be having 3 of these capsules a day. If you're not eating it, you're supplementing with it. So make sure you get that. Cardioprotector is another one we recommend, especially if you're on statin drugs. This has CoQ10, but it has all the nutrients that we talked about, like the magnesium. You have also proline. You have so many things here that I can talk to you later, but the magnesium, the CoQ10, a lot of the cardiac inflammatory nutrients. And then the last one that we have is berberine. If you guys haven't heard of berberine, which is, again, most people's issues is blood sugar issues. So it has the same mechanism as metformin. So most of you know that most diabetics are either on insulin or some kind of a drug. Well, berberine is been found to have the same AMPK benefits in your body like metformin without the side effects. And so when we have people with blood sugar issues, I myself have to take it because who has diabetes in my family? My dad, my mom died prematurely from diabetes. That's my passion. She is my passion because she died too soon. Then my sister. So guess what? Genetics are a tendency, but they're not a life sentence. I have to take care of me too. Okay. And then lastly, guys, here, just moving on with this. I'm going to skip through some of this. It's also used as a blood thinner. So berberine can also be used instead of aspirin. But again, all I have to tell you is talk to your doctor. Hey, I'm changing my habits. I want you to check me after a certain 3 months. I'm doing this diet and I'm doing these supplements. Can you check me and see if maybe we can get off of some of these things? Because can I get you off of this stuff? No. But if they're seeing that you're doing some stuff and they see, hey, your blood sugar is lower, your cholesterol actually looks better. You guys see that? Your levels look better. They'll still see the medical model numbers, but start asking questions and asking them.
Can you have like low inflammation in your blood and then still have arthritis?
Yeah, you can because of sometimes if you've changed You have the ability to change the numbers, but your body has had struggles over time. So you can still have the arthritis already set in. So people say, can you reverse the arthritis? You can reverse it to an extent, but it's like a cavity or something like that. You know, it's sad. You can't all together, but it's never too late to stop the progression. Yeah. I don't know if you guys heard her question. Yeah, maybe. All right, so exercise is part of this. I'm not going to talk about too much about exercise, but we have an exercise program that's high intensity, short duration. It's only 12 minutes, and the whole goal of it is to bring your heart rate up. I mean, to an extent, but then also rest. So high intensity, short duration. So like 2 minutes on or 1 minute on, 2 minutes off, or 30 seconds on. And so we'll explain that later. We're actually having a class. If you look at this health survey, it says, you know, do you want to, come to the core class? We have a stretch and core class where we talk a little bit about these exercises, but this class specifically is going to help you with flexibility. Most people say, why does my back hurt? Well, your hamstrings are probably tight. Let's work on helping you stretch. So it's all about stretching and flexibility and showing you what to do at home. So you can put your name on there. And these are we're going to pick up for raffles in just a little bit. But you can put yes or no. If you want to bring somebody for back to school appreciation week, next week we're going to make these appointments where you can either schedule yourself or somebody you know. And we have that at a discounted price. So you can get your name on there and circle a time you want to bring somebody to get that checked. And you could either pay the discounted price or bring a backpack, because we want backpacks for back to school, so you can do either that. And lastly, guys, here, George is going to talk about his detox program, but we talked about this is the bucket overflowing, and we're so toxic it's overflowing because of all the things we talked about. So do you want to come over here, George?
Oh, yeah, so one thing that we want to address is that cellular inflammation. So sometimes, we might do lab work and look at, our levels are fine, but sometimes we don't realize that the cell is so congested, and that's where that cell damage is causing a lot of issues where you're not getting those nutrients that come into that cell. And so that's where we want to get to the root cause. And a lot of these autoimmune conditions, a lot of the inflammation really comes from the cell being so damaged. So we do testing, and one of the tests that we do, one of the things that we'll do is like a questionnaire, so a neurotoxicity questionnaire. We also have a inflammation spectrum quiz. So we just ask several questions on different organs to see if if you have symptoms, and to kind of see if is there some inflammation that you probably didn't think about, but all that physical, emotional, chemical stress starts to impact the function of your body. And so we see a lot of issues with physical performance and cognitive function. So we do 2 different exams too. So a visual contrast exam, and then we do a meta-oxy. And so the meta-oxy helps to see if there's a lot of waste product coming from that cell membrane. So it has to get processed through the liver, and then it goes into to the urine. And so we test it, and we look at this colorimetric scale. So if it's really dark, it means that there's a lot of cell damage. Okay, so you're having a lot of free radical damage, but we wanted to get a light and color so we know that your body's not having to process so much of that waste from that cell. And so we know that cells are constantly getting replaced, but certain cells within your organs, like your liver, takes 500 days to replace every cell. But other cells, like your intestinal wall, gets replaced a lot faster. So that's why it's a journey. It takes time, to really get the body to, heal completely. So, this is what we do. because some people do the sauna, they do like foot baths, colonics, stuff like that to detox. But we really want to look at this funnel and start from the colon health and then work our way up. So once we address, like if you are there's constipation, you just don't have good bowel movements, we have to start there, and then we move up, addressing the liver, the kidneys, your metabolism, and then we look at lymphatic drainage. So we have to start there then we can get more into the tissue integrity and to that cell health. But we do these 3 phases. Some people might require more than to do a couple of the phases if they're just dealing with more. But usually with 3 months we can see amazing results. And we do the five R's. But we first start with addressing the phase 1 is addressing the gut, the liver, the kidneys, and then the gut health. And then we start detoxing on the body phase. And the body phase is where we start to kind of push things out, but we're also addressing heavy metals too. So you might not be aware that you have heavy metals, and that could be from your water contaminants. Maybe you've had a silver filling. We can get exposed to a lot of these heavy metals from a lot of different areas. And then once we address the body phase, we go into like the brain phase, where now we're going upstream, going through that blood-brain barrier to really get a lot of these toxins out of that are causing some neurodegenerative issues too. But if you're interested, we do an exam, and we do that consult. And we do the meta-oxy, the visual contrast, and then I send you home with that inflammation spectrum quiz and that neurotoxicity questionnaire too. And then we sit down and kind of look at those results. I have some patients that have, did a consult, but maybe they weren't ready to start the program, because it's 3 months where you're going to do a lot more than just take supplements. You're going to do things with physical exercise, emotional health, nutrition. So we have to implement like what we teach, the 5 essentials, but we just take things to like a bigger level, okay? And then in your booklets, there is a QR code. So if you're interested, you just pay this the consult fee, but then you set up that appointment on that. You scan a QR code. I have some dates available this week and then the following week. Okay, but any questions about that? I just tried to go through it really quick, just because we're.
So
Mhm.
if you do, let me know, and we'll have him up here where he can go and pick up these sheets where you can either make your appointment to get your spine checked, make your appointment to do the flexibility class, or also bring a friend next week to get checked for the back to school special that we have on there. Action steps, just really quick, if you do want to do this next 3 months. Again, what did we talk about? What plan are you going to do? The advanced plan, in addition to utilizing what? Fasting. Okay. And so those 2 things, even if you just start there and you're not ready to do the workout yet, or maybe just go for a walk for 12 minutes, do something, okay? And then the other action step is I would even just come to the flexibility talk, so we can help you with that. So the other last thing I want to just mention here, I don't know if you guys know that we have people who have so much inflammation, like in their joints, like their knees, their hips, their shoulders. If you guys haven't tried SoftWave, that's just another thing that can help utilize your own body. That's why I got SoftWave, because it falls with our principle, the power that made the body heals the body. This is just using this equipment called SoftWave that helps your own stem cells go and heal that area on its own. So sometimes you have so much of that fibrotic tissue, like arthritis has so much crud in there. So this machine is diagnostic. When you're doing it, you'll feel like pain. How How many of you have done soft wave and it's a little painful? So you'll feel the pain. So your body's finding those areas where there's a lot of fibrotic tissue, but it actually then starts breaking it up so that then your body and your nervous system can send your stem cells to start healing those areas. So if you've used soft wave, raise your hand if it did so much benefits for you. And mostly everybody who, yeah.
Honestly, in the 5 sessions,
You want to stand up?
I've been having chronic neck issues for the last year to a point where I can hardly even turn my neck. And her husband, Dr. Main, he actually started doing the soft wave, and I cannot believe the difference I feel. I was going to physical therapy for about 3 months, did nothing. Then I came back and she suggested doing the soft wave, and I feel like I'm almost pain-free right now.
Yeah,
It's
so
amazing.
There's so much degeneration and stuff that we need to kind of go to the next level beyond just adjusting the joint, going in there and letting your stem cells go and do the healing. So it's just one of those things that we've seen a lot of success. So that's another thing you can sign up for if you want to do a consult. For that, we call it an exploratory exam where we can do that. Typically, that exploratory exam is $49. We're doing it for $29 for the people who are here. And so you have that opportunity to try it out. And it's a diagnostic, kind of like just exploratory session, see if it even helps you. Most people within the first session feel like either less rigidity or more motion, something. So it's just for you to at least try it out. So that's basically all I have. Lastly, if you want to watch our videos again or show them to somebody, they're on YouTube. You can follow us at Main Health Solutions. My website's Main Health Solutions. You guys know that my cell phone is on my card. When you called to make an appointment, who picked up the phone? Who texted you back? I know. I'm told by my coaches, why are you doing that? I'm like, I don't like voicemails. I don't like when I don't get a person. I want them to get a person, and then my team can do the rest. You know what I mean? But yeah. So, but if you have a question, who should you text? If you're in the grocery store and you're like, I don't know what product to get, send me a picture and text it. And then I know when you do that, I know you want help. If you don't do that, then I don't ask you questions about your nutrition. You know what I mean? But the more you kind of ask me, the more I help you because that person is doing something about it. All right? So lastly, guys, I'm going to pray for you, and then my team's going to do a raffle here. So I think you're supposed to turn this in to do this raffle. So make sure he gets that. And uh-huh.
I have a question. You're talking about the too much protein out of your protein up there. How much is too much?
I wanted to do the $29.
How much is too?
Well, you got that little scoop. We would just.
Maybe ask me later. I don't know what you're trying to, so I can wrap this up. I'll answer in just a bit. So guys, lastly, guys, here, so here you go. Try to fold it, because then, here you go, George. Do we have them all? Could somebody pick them up for me? Thank you.
Okay, we eat tons of honey. Honey, okay, raw honey. And you're saying oatmeal is bad.
If you're on the advanced plan, oatmeal is great. So on the advanced plan, on the core plan, you can have honey and
I don't think oatmeal is every morning with honey.
if you want to make changes with your health, you're gonna have to get off for a while.
Stop.
Yeah, get on the advanced. All right, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this jar, and I think there's trash bags, guys. And lastly, the supplements tonight are 15% off if you do want to get some of these supplements that we talked about tonight. If you're interested, talk to Max. Any questions? No, I'm waiting for raffle tickets. You got them on? Yeah, if you want the recipes, you could even just take a picture. Look at my thing if you want to buy the book.
Okay.
Is there a price on this, Rosie?
Huh?
Is there a price on it?
That's a great question. I don't even know. What's the price of my book?
Oh, 13 with taxes. Then, yeah.
All right, you're right. You want to do this?
And so, Dale. The next person we give one of Dr. Rosie's cookbooks. And Sandy. Do you have Dr. Rosie's cookbook?
I do.
Do you want a bag of steps with that? You can pick one of those out. I'm going to do another cookbook. And Larry, do you have Dr. Rosie's? You have the cookbook too? Yeah. What do you want? Like one of the resistance bands for the bags? Yeah. All right. Next. And Barton Heath. All right. Awesome. And then Sophia Marie? Yes. What do you forget? Huh? You want to repeat? Or what do
Who
you
wants
like?
a piece of turmeric?
All right. Two more.
Oh,
Marietta? Oh, you. And Julio.
Well, you really kept your wind going today.
yeah.
It was amazing.
Oh,
Oh, I loved it. I need a couple more. Do you have too much later to get that thing presented?
oh no.
I mean, this is, because I could send it so that she wouldn't have to sign for it, but it's got
Oh, it's all in there.
it's all, it's
I'll give it
got
to John.
the entire
All right. Thank you guys.
plan for,
So they want to give this to brother. Sandra. Because it has all.
we did our will and we did.
No, what I was asking. Bring back. I have one for him and I have one for him. Both of them protein. I use one.
Not for you. This one has like 20, we recently had like 20 grams. and that's for one meal, and then at night that's another. So you can have like your body weight and stuff. Hey, Dad. I'm glad you made it. Yeah. No, I got your call. I just sit there and just stress.
I mean, even now, the medical doctors don't expect.
Yeah, just talk to make an appointment with my team. So it activates your own stem cells. Like, do you have a joint that's not working?
Well, I have degenerative lower back and I have arthritis in my lower back right now.
So is it painful? Yeah. So then we would do it on that. So see how it helps.
No, I've cut.
And then you can see if it does help.
See things that I hear on the radio about QC genetics or something. Somebody's got that QC genetics.
I don't know what that is. So that's what that is. So yeah, try it out. Yeah, you go to him?
No, I just saw him at the fair. I was passing a Bible fair.